Hey guys, this is Lurkin from Mobilytics. I hope you liked the gameplay. Decided to put it first so that you could kind of watch it, and then if you wanted to listen to me ramble about the build, how it works, then you can choose to do so at the end. So this is going to be a Fireball and Teleport Enchant. So we take Enchantment Master, that way it reduces the Teleport Enchant cooldown from about 12 to about 9.8. And then we take Fireball Enchantment, that way, so basically the simple gameplay loop is evade into a pack, Arc Lash him a couple times. One dies, it's going to explode in Fireball. It's going to nuke the whole pack. It's going to proc the attacks reduce evade cooldowns on your Flickerstep. Get another teleport. Bop, bop, bop. It's just a huge chain reaction. It's really good, especially with Raiment. It's just, this is the fastest thing I've played. I think this is faster than the Ball Lightning build that I just made, but we'll see how the scores end up coming in Gauntlet. This is definitely a Gauntlet build. This is a speed farm T100 Vault build. You can do carries with it. Single targets, decent. It's not as good as say Blizzard, but it's getting there. We're getting a lot of damage out of Arc Lash. So we're going to move straight into the character. So you're going to start off with Harlequin Crest. I'll preface all of this by saying that Paingorgers scales based off of this number right here. This Unleash Arc Lightning that deals 43k to 52k damage to enemies. So you want to bump this number up however you can. This will bump up via some glyphs, some flat multis, stuff like that. So what you're looking for in this build is lightning damage and vulnerable damage, basic skill damage, stuff like that, stuff that the Paingorgers mark can utilize, and stuff that's going to have really good uptime. Damage to the close is definitely an option, but I'll get into that when I go over the affixes. We don't need burning in this build. When you run Flickersteps, especially on Arc Lash, because you can't slot Elementalist aspect, you're going to sit around 42% crit chance, so Devouring Blaze becomes not worth it, and you can just scale other ways, specifically 6 ranks in the Conjuration Mastery. So we'll get back into the gear. So you're going to want Shaco. If you don't have Shaco and a helmet that looks like this will be pretty good. I would preferably want total armor, cooldown reduction, max life, and basic skill attack speed. This is just what I had lying around. And then I do opt to take Aspect of Might over Disobedience. I just felt like I was getting way more value out of the 20% DR. I tried Disobedience first and I was getting nuked. I got mainly by those little new the new wasps, but they're the little spider guys from the new vaults. They're miserable. So we'll keep this on for now, but ideally you want Shaco. The 4 ranks is huge. Max life, all stats, cooldown reduction, just such a good helmet. Next, Raiment of the Infinite. Raiment is, you have to have this on. It's the core of the build. Enables it so that when you teleport, when you evade with the teleport enchant, that it clumps at all the enemies. And then the damage from your just normal teleport will proc Paingorgers. This build doesn't proc Paingorgers as much, but you saw from the gameplay, you saw how much it was going off. So we don't get as many Paingorgers procs as we do on, say, Firebolt Enchant, where everything is procced, but you're so fast moving from pack to pack, just exploding them with Fireball Enchant that it doesn't even matter. Next is our Paingorgers. So the one thing that's important here in the build is we're looking to hit, it's okay if you don't, but we're looking to hit 175% attack speed. So what that equates to is we have 75 from Ancient Flame, we have 25 from Unstable Currents, we have 15 from the Gloves, we have 15 from our Focus, and then we have 25 from Unstable Currents, which I may have already talked about. Yes, I did. So we're going to minus that 25. We're at 130, and then we have 30 from Rapid, so that takes us to 160. So what we're looking for is you want this attack speed roll here and here. You want it to be as close to max as possible. If you don't have it, it's totally okay. It's just like a 7% attack damage loss because you're attacking 7% slower because you're looking for a frame break. Thanks to Arc Accrueid from that. I'll link his YouTube in the description. He sort of what inspired me to take off Firebolt Enchant and to run Fireball Enchant over this, just seeing some of his gameplay. So I just made it in my style with the way that I've built Paingorgers before with the previous Arc Lash iteration that ran Asus. So Paingorgers is a must on this. Vaults isn't necessary, but this build does function at, I know I have 8700 armor right now because I have both of these, but this, even without this armor roll, this build does function at 6000 armor. You have so much DR from some of our shock skill passives and from Teleport Enchant that You can mitigate the loss of armor with just straight up flat damage reduction. And then we have 2 DR close rolls. So Debalts is good because you get 40% more damage. After a teleport, not the evade teleport because that doesn't make you unstoppable, but after a straight teleport or after a flame shield, 40% damage is pretty huge. And then Flickersteps, attacks reduce evade. Everything in the build is you're gonna have basically permanent teleports, and then we get another 20% close DR from here, and this enables us to have permanent uptime on our unstable currents. Huge. Next we have Rapid on a dagger. Now we opt to take Ancient Flame on the amulet over Rapid. Because of that attack speed breakpoint, we're looking to hit 157. So basic skills gain 30% attack speed, and then you're going to want int all stats, that's necessary. And then I really think you're going to want basic skill damage and vulnerable damage. And you're going to want the basic skill damage because that scales up your Paingorgers and your Arc Lash damage. But it's a flex between vulnerable damage and damage to close. I opt for vulnerable because some of the enemies that you mark with Paingorgers aren't going to be close to you, but they could be vulnerable from lightning spears. So that's why I go with that. This is exactly how you want your focus to look. Crit strike chance, cooldown reduction, basic skill damage, basic skill attack speed. I don't really know what... Yeah, this is what you want. Look for a focus with this. This isn't that flexible. You're going to want Conceited on here. I opt to take it over Stormswell, despite Stormswell being 5% more damage because of the consistency and uptime, because we permanently have a barrier. Next is Ring of Adaptability. So, because we're never spending mana, we're always going to get 80% more damage out of our Arc Lash. Unfortunately, this doesn't factor into our tooltip thing that shows our Arc Lash damage. It's an after the fact, so this doesn't affect Paingorgers, but it's okay. It's such a large increase, 81.8x damage to our straight normal Arc Lash, that it's totally fine. This is a perfect ring. This is exactly what you want. Crit strike chance, vulnerable damage, lightning, and max life. There's 2 flexes in here. You could take close damage over vulnerable, and you could take close damage over max life if you're looking to pump out more damage, because you see we got 15k with Shaco on. Next is Talrasha. We got 1 point Ice Blades just to hit the 15% damage. It's our form of cold damage. Then we have Flame Shield and Fireball Enchant to proc fire damage, and then the rest of the build is all shock. So we're getting 45% out of that. Next is a necklace with Ancient Flame. This is huge. You get so much attack speed out of here. And unlike the previous build where I ran Firebolt Enchant, I'm seeing this proc consistently. Because the Firebolt Enchant one, I was getting a lot more enemies dying from the Paingorgers mark as opposed to the Arc Lash itself, especially with the 42% crit chance. So this, you're permanently at getting the 75% attack speed from here. So the 2 mandatories on here are the 3 ranks to Conjuration Mastery and the cooldown reduction. That's huge. Anything you can do to reduce your Teleport Enchant, decrease your Teleport cooldown or increase its ranks will affect this. Because if you take off ranks to Teleport, this number goes up because it's directly related. So we were at 9.8, now we're at 11.2. It's directly related to your cooldown and your Teleport ranks. So the 2 flexes here are total armor and movement speed. I have to take movement speed so that I have a little bit of mobility in between packs, because as you saw in the videos, sometimes there is a little bit of downtime, especially if enemies are sparse, so you make a missed teleport. You kind of have to chug your way along because you don't have the Asus Evade movement speed. But I think this is good. This is what I'm going to put in the planner. Total armor and movement speeds as the secondary. Other options are DR distant, DR close. Intelligence could even be there if you wanted to bump up the damage. You're only gonna get about 5% damage out of intelligence though. So this is what this looks like. Let's move into our Seneschal Construct. So Flash of Adrenaline set in stone. If you don't have Genesis, take an initiative. This is going to give us a 50% damage bonus with Genesis and a 20% without. You would take initiative so that he teleports to you, so they can actually catch up to you. And then we'd take tactical and duration, reduces the cooldown from 20 to 12, increase the duration from 8 to 12. Permanent 50% damage buff, that's set in stone. Tempest is also set in stone, but what isn't set in stone is these. The only one that you ever need is Evernight, because of the 4 ranks that you get to all your skills. This helps with your cooldowns, and it helps with your Arc Lash damage. These 2 are flexible. I have to take Breaking in case I ever run into a Butcher, because he gets that shield and it became annoying to break through. And I have found it a little inconsistent whether he breaks the shield or not, but we take it anyway, just to ensure vulnerable on big single targets like that. And I take Safeguard just for a permanent 15% DR. We're just stacking DR on this build. We're just ignoring armor. We're stacking DR. So that's huge. Things that you could take, I would say other options are arcing and breaking. No, arcing and efficiency. That way you can get more crit chance out of the build. That'll be more damage. But sometimes you're moving too fast to where Tempest really isn't even hitting stuff that often. So I just keep Safeguard and Evernight just for stat boosters. Let's move into our skill tree. I'll take off this helmet so you can see what it actually looks like. So we're going to max out Arc Lash, take Enhanced so that it swipes more often, so that it swipes more when it critically strikes, and then Glinting. Everything's stunned in the build, so every time we're smashing crap, it's going to reduce our cooldowns. We are going to max out Fireball. These two nodes aren't necessary, but I don't think Enhanced does anything for the enchantment. Yeah, I don't think Enhanced does anything for the enchantment, but Destructive will add a little bit more damage because you are hitting packs, so you're going to get this 30% more crit damage out of it all the time. Max out so that it does more damage. Next is Chain Lightning. We're taking this purely for the Destructive Chain Lightning. That way, during UC, we're going to get 30%. We're at 30% chance when we critically strike to make a Crackling Energy. Crackling Energy does proc Paingorgers Mark, so that's sort of the main way that we apply it in this build. It's all the crackling bouncing off. Same thing goes for Destructive Charge Bolts. We're taking this purely for during Unstable Currents, so that we get 25% DR from enemies that get hit with Charge Bolts. 1 point in Flame Shield. We're going to take Enhanced for movement speed and Shimmering to heal us through poison. Max out Teleport, very important. Enhanced so that it reduces the cooldown when you do hit stuff, and Shimmering for 30% DR. That's the crux of the build. That's why we're able to exist with no armor. Max out Glass Cannon because we can do it, baby. 1 point Elemental Attunement just to have a chance to reset some of our cooldowns. Ice Armor. Ice Armor is really nice, just a nice barrier for when it gets thick. Just 1 point Ice Blades, and obviously when you have Shakeout, you can get rid of these 2 points, distribute them where you see fit. It's not too picky. Next, we have Lightning Spear. So when Lightning Spear critically strikes, it applies vulnerable for 3 seconds. This node makes it so it has an escalating chance to crit as it keeps going. So towards the end of it, everything's getting crit, everything's getting stunned from invoked here, and everything's vulnerable. This is how we scale our damage, 6 ranks in Conj Mastery. So when you have 10 Conjurations out, which is very common because of how fast Arc Lash swipes, you're going to get 60% damage. Then you can have upwards of 16 plus Conjurations, so then you're looking at like 100% damage. So basically doubles our damage. So these are flex points, but I have to take 3 points and align the elements. That way, when I do run into a Butcher or something like that, I can restack up that Elite DR pretty fast, so that's huge. We don't take Mana Shield, we're not spending mana, and then we take Protection. Every time we evade Teleport or Teleport, use any of our cooldowns, we're going to get 30%. We're going to get a pretty big barrier. I just take the bare minimum in Ball Lightning. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking for it for Wizards, so that way I can make more Crackling. We don't take Static Discharge. This node's horrible. Barely ever makes Crackling. Don't bother. I just take 2 points in UC. I'm just after the Prime Unstable Currents, so that I can get 25% attack speed. And then I do just take the 3 points in Electrocution. And some of those flex points I was talking about, they could go in Conduction, so that we can get a little bit more move speed during the downtime between evades and stuff, even though there's not that many, but it happens. Or you could take like 3 points in Icy Veil for longer barriers, but we're after the Electrocution, so that enemies deal 15% less damage to us for 5 seconds after we crit them. That's permanently up, basically. And then last is Asu's Ferocity. I know, Asu's Ferocity is bugged, but we're not after this we're not after this critical strike damage. Even if this gets bug fixed, so that we're not getting the critical strike damage, this build doesn't have high crit. We're not really utilizing the top part there, the 25% damage and the 5% crit. That's irrelevant. We don't care about that. What we care about is proccing Ancient Flame so that we can get 75% attack speed, and that will always proc, even if this gets bug fixed, because critical strikes that kill enemies or hit a boss grant it for 3 seconds. It's always happening. It's permanently up. Now, I'm very happy with this board. I will not be making any changes to it. Starter board. Grab this non-physical. Then we're going to go into Reinforced. This build permanently has a barrier. This is a 15% DR that we get. It also buffs our all resist and our non-physical damage. Next, we path up to Enchantment Master board. We're going to take Enchantment Master so that our enchantments are 20% stronger. We get a little bit more damage out of Fireball. Whatever. And then we get, the biggest thing is reducing the TP enchant cooldown from, by 20%. That's pretty huge. So we just end up pathing our way up, grab this non-physical, non-phys DR non-fizz and damage to elites here. And we do grab Elementalist mainly to buff our all resist and our non-physical damage, and we do get a little bit of multiplicative damage out of it. And this will help with bossing. You will get 1.15x damage against bosses because we got Ice Blades, Flame Shield, and all our shock skills. So our next board is Control. We're going to max this out because everything's stunned in the build. We're getting a ton of value out of this. So much additive damage. And we do grab this lightning damage. Arc Lash loves lightning damage because it boosts the number in the skill tree tooltip. We grab this non-physical here. And then we grab Charged. We are making a decent amount of crackling, so that's 15% damage. We don't care about the crackling energy damage. That's irrelevant. Next, we take Enchanter. Enchanter is very important in Arc Lash builds because of the lightning damage that you get, and it enables you to max out your Frigid Fate for 1.3x damage to vulnerable enemies. And hell, the intelligence here ain't bad either. That's a lot of int that helps scale our damage. We take 39 in Destruction here. We aren't critting that much, but we're still getting about 8% additive damage because we have about 40% crit. Still getting 8% damage, but main thing here is when you critically, you're going to get the 1.2x damage here out of it when you crit enemies. So you can swap this next glyph with Destruction, play around with it, see what you get more damage out of. But next is Exploit. We get a little bit of vulnerable damage, but what we're really after is the 1.1x damage buff that we get to ourselves. So that's huge. I like this board. I think it's good. Not too many changes that I would make on it. Next, let's go into our tooltip. I'll put Shaco back on. So we're sitting pretty on all our resists. We're pretty high over it. We got 75 lightning and fire because of Enchanter. That also gives us the bumps. Whatever we have in our enchantments will get bumped by 5%, the max that you can hit. We're overcapped. Sources boards are so weird, so we are overcapped, and it just is what it is. There's too much specific resists in the boards. So we're only seeing 9.6% here, but we are at like 155, right? We should be at 160 if all the rolls were perfect. The tooltip just doesn't show it. We are at 41% crit chance because I have pretty good crit chance rolls. Don't care about overpower. Don't care about overpower chance. We get 127.9 vulnerable damage out of the Paragon and out of our items. 63 all day. Don't worry about this number. This is skewed by Glass Cannon, etc. So next we're looking at, we have this beefy 435% lightning damage. That is massive. And then after this I'll go into the board and I'll show you what it looks like when I take out Enchanter and just like why this is so important. So, and then we're well over cap on damage with cold, so we're sitting pretty there. And then we have 179.5 damage with basic, which is huge. That buffs up our Arc Lash tooltip as well. Useless stat, semi-useless stat, useless stat. We got a little bit of damage to close, mainly from territorial. That's fine. 32 damage to elites, and then 145 damage to crowd control, 33 damage to stun. So we're hitting those mobs pretty hard. So let's look at the Arc Lash tooltip. I'm just kind of want to just go over some things, what it looks like. So let's see. So we are at 43 to 52. Let's take off Shaco. Now this bumps down to 32 to 40. So 40 to 52, it's like a 25% increase. That's huge. Now let's take off our Enchanter glyph. And before we can look at it again, skill tree, sorry. Yeah, we're at 43 to 52. Oh my. Let's go into our Paragon. We're going to take off Enchanter to see how much damage that we do lose. So 37 to 46. So we gain about 46 to 52. That's 6. I'm going to eyeball it here and say 12% damage that we gain just from Enchanter. So that's pretty huge. That's a good glyph. So and then we're getting the additive non-physical on top of it, which probably will equate to about another 8 to 10% in added towards our additive damage. And then it just rounds out our Frigid Fate. So Enchanter's pretty good on this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave in the comments anything you'd like to see in upcoming videos, what you think of these, anything I can do to improve. I hope you guys like my crappy word art thumbnails. I'm sticking with it because I think they're hilarious. Alright, I'll catch you guys. Have a good one, and where is it? Oh, and that's my cat, Juno. She likes to hang out and watch. I'll catch you guys.